I was on Hacker News the other day and I saw this article, all of human cooking compressed into 2 megabytes. As the first comment immediately says, the work is very interesting, but the title is slightly misleading. And if you actually go and look at the article, the title becomes Navigating the Emergent Geometry of Food Ingredient Embeddings. And this is a pretty interesting topic if you start thinking about it. We've got word embeddings and we've got all sorts of embedding techniques with transformers, but that works on text and language in general, but maybe ingredients deserve another look. The paper provides some embedding tricks, and you can also download these embeddings to come up with interesting widgets to explore the embedded space of ingredients. But before getting there and diving into the notebook, I think it might be good to just briefly explain the idea in the paper, which is pretty interesting on its own. So let's say you're interested in trying to come up with embeddings for ingredients. So you've got a tomato, you'd like to have an embedding for that, and you've got broccoli, you want to have a different one for that. Well, one thing you could do is you could just grab a dictionary, start training word embeddings as normal. But typically you're interested in ingredients with regards to how you're going to be using them in cooking. So it might make more sense to actually grab some recipes instead. Recipe 1 has tomato, potato, and maybe basil, right? And maybe recipe number 2, it also has tomato, it also has potato, and let's say it also has olives. Now, one thing we could do is we could take recipes like this, look at all the ingredients, and then we can start thinking about pairs. So tomato, potato, tomato, basil, as well as basil, potato, and then a similar thing over here. We've got all these pairs, and those are connections that we could use to build a graph of sorts. And maybe we can do a graph embedding thing once we get there. So I'm going to start constructing this graph now, and the way I'm going to go about it is I'm going to basically go through all the different pairs. And when I just look at those 2 recipes, this is what the final graph might look like. One thing I would like to point out is that tomato and potato, they actually appeared in both recipes. And that is also why I've drawn the arc here twice, to make it clear that the connection is quite strong. But you can imagine that we're going to grow and grow and grow this graph. And then eventually, as the graph becomes bigger, we get to reevaluate whether or not we like it if there is an arc. There's a lot of ways to do this. One thing you could just do is you could say, well, if there's only one connection that's not good enough, we're going to come up with some sort of a cutoff threshold, at least 5 connections, right? Things like that. Another thing you could do is use mutual information statistics that allows you to do things like, what's the chance of this item appearing in a recipe in general? What's the chance of this happening in a recipe in general? And compare that to the chance of both being in a recipe in general. And then you can make a cutoff based on that. But either way, eventually, you're going to cut a couple of these arcs away, and you do end up with a graph that looks a bit like this. Now, if you wanted to train embeddings on this, you could do one trick, which is you're just going to start somewhere on the graph, and then you're just going to start walking. And then, when you're done walking, you could say, well, I've got these 4 nodes in sequence. I'm going to pretend that those nodes are like words in a sentence, and then that can be a thing that you could use to just train word embeddings like you would normally. There's skipgram algorithms, there's all sorts of other things. But walking over a graph could be seen as making a path, and that path can be interpreted like a sentence, and from there on, you could just apply the normal algorithms as you would. But there is this one extra thing that you could do if you've got a graph like this, and that is that you can also mix this with chemical information. The thinking here is that some ingredients, like let's say chicken and beef, they typically won't appear in the same recipe, but if you look at all the nutrients and chemical information, they are in fact similar because they're very protein rich. So we could, for example, if this is beef and if this is chicken, we could introduce a new node here, which is a particular protein, maybe, or whatever chemical property that we're investigating right now. And that can actually be a link to connect the 2 nodes as well. You're going to do this in a few places on this graph, but one thing that's interesting is that suddenly you are now able to walk different paths, if it were. Instead of walking over the normal nodes, you can now add a rule that says, well, you can start somewhere, and you're again going to walk a path, but the node you start from has to travel through a chemical node before landing elsewhere, and then again it has to walk through a chemical node before landing elsewhere. You are generating different sequences of paths, and this will allow you to also train for different embeddings. You're going to again use the same algorithms, again inspired from the normal word embedding list, but by constructing this graph differently, you're going to get different paths, different sentences, and therefore also different embeddings. And what the paper argues is that you could have the normal recipe embeddings, you could have the chemical embedding, and what you can also try to do is maybe combine them and merge them. There are lots of details on how you could do this. The paper describes some of their choices, But one thing that I thought was particularly interesting is that this technique is actually relatively general. In this case, we're talking about ingredients, but there might be other domains where constructing a graph could make sense. And the fact that you can just add domain knowledge, in this case in the form of these protein jumps, that's also something that occurs to me as something that's very general and that you might be able to apply in your own domain as well. So that was definitely an interesting technique, I thought. But it is also something that you can explore quite easily in a notebook as well. These embeddings can be found on Hugging Face. I downloaded them. I made a little UI here. On the left, you can see the ingredient that I'm going to start with. And then on the right, I can choose the different embedding model. Right now, I've got the chemical one selected, and you can see that if I go for chicken, it's mainly other protein-rich ingredients that are being selected. If I go for COOC, which is co-occurrence in the recipes, then you can suddenly see that it's a little bit more about ingredients in actual recipes because there's onion and garlic and I suppose turkey, chicken broth. This definitely feels more like something that you would see in a recipe book. And then core is the combination of the two. And you can explore this for chicken or maybe a vegetable. I don't know, let's go for tomato. If I go for co-occurrence, it's onions and parsley and garlic and different kinds of peppers. And if I go for chemicals, tomatoes apparently have more in common with red peppers, bell peppers. I'm not actually able to properly judge this to see if this is accurate, but it is interesting to see the difference. Now, one thing you could also do is you could try to go a step further and maybe try to recreate the original graph. If you want to do this, you are going to have to make a few assumptions. So what I'm doing here is I'm saying, look, I'm going to start with a seed term like this tomato, and then from there you can do these jumps. That's based off of a model, of course, but also there's a maximum number of neighbors to jump to, and there's also this minimum cosine distance that I do want to see before allowing you to actually make a jump, and there's also a maximum number of hops that you could make. I can increase that to make the graph just a little bit bigger. Very quickly, you do see that it can become quite unwieldy. And also here, I think a very interesting thing is that you can see that there's a difference between if you search and make the graph with chemical embeddings or if you do it just based on co-occurrences. You do get very different results. And again, that's all pretty interesting to have a look at and maybe try to compare. So at this point, you might think, well, it's cute, but when are these embeddings actually kind of useful? And from my perspective, it's definitely still a little bit in the experimental phase. But one thing you could theoretically do is you could also come up with embeddings that represent maybe cuisines. And then you could take an ingredient and have it move towards the cuisine that you're interested in. And the cuisine could also be related to diets, maybe, not necessarily about a specific set of recipes. But you could try to do things like, look, there's a target cuisine that's all about Italian cheeses and cured meats. And let's say that you've got sweet potato. Well, then you could start all the way from the sweet potato angle. Things that are similar in the beginning are things like pumpkin. But then as you move closer to this Italian cheeses, then you do get some suggestions that say things like, okay, if you want to take that sweet potato and move it in that direction, maybe you can combine it with some vegetable stock, with some butternut squash, maybe some portobello mushrooms. So those are ingredients from that Italian kitchen, you could say, but they are perhaps closer related to the sweet potato. So that could be a way to construct a dish. Before you go and actually change all of your recipes based on these embeddings, it does help to take a step back and to also observe that there's more to cooking than just embeddings and recipes. There's also techniques. There's also things like patience. And there's also the whole thing about cooking together, right? A lot of that stuff is just simply not captured in these embeddings. That's also something to keep in the back of your mind. But if you're keen to fool around with some new embedding types, embeddings for ingredients, they exist. So you can go nuts there as well.